I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So our orders get all backed up. We're drowning in paperwork, then actually drowning. Carol is fighting off sharks with a stapler, and pirates are pillaging the office copier, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant goes beyond the resume, using unique insights to deliver a smarter shortlist. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Welcome back to the Epic Universal Podcast. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and this is the podcast where we cover the latest Universal news, rumors, and history. And as always, I'm joined by Eric Hersey, who managed to blow up a space heater just a moment ago. Is that correct, Eric?
Yeah, well, I've been using it all day, all week. It's funny that I was testing. So I have my office here in the lower level of the household, and it is quite cold here. And it's funny that I had the space heater on one side, and I would notice that my left hand was perfectly normal, and the mouse hand, which is the left, would start to freeze up, and I'd have to slowly de-thaw it so often. So I went upstairs and just showed Lainey the sample testing here of I placed my hand on one cheek and I'm like, this is a normal hand. And then I showed the other. So yeah, now we're going to have both cold hands. But the thing is, I can't be running a space heater while we're recording anyway. Those buzzes would, our editor Dave would not be happy about that. So instead, I have a heated blanket. So I don't think that'll make any noise.
Okay, well, good. And speaking of people who clearly cannot be happy, I mean, the Academy Award nominations were announced this past Friday, and regular listeners to this podcast know Eric and I are contractually obligated to mention Wicked for Good on every episode of this podcast. And it is with some chagrin that we mentioned that in contrast to the last set of Academy Award nominations, where the first Wicked film did really, really well, Wicked for Good got skunked, right? I mean, nothing, absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, Jim, they have the same amount of nominations as you and I do, so we share something in common.
Well, there we go. All right,
0. They didn't get a single one. Which I mean, was kind of shocking, right? We thought they would get makeup or design,
costumes,
we didn't.
Yeah.
And I know Ariana Grande was in. Yeah. So very interesting, but no.
Well, I guess they have to take some consolation in the giant piles of money they have to move to make their way around the place at Universal that is, these days riding herd on all things Oz, which, by the way, we have some news about later on in today's show. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here, folks. We first have to, of course, acknowledge our sponsor, Be Our Guest Vacation. And planning your next adventure? Let the experts at Be Our Guest Vacation take care of the details. As a platinum-level earmarked travel agency, they provide top-tier concierge service for trips to Universal Orlando, Universal Hollywood, Disney parks, cruises, and more. So get started today at beourguestvacations.com, and be sure to mention that it was the Epic Universal podcast that sent you. So, following up a little bit of news we had last week in regard to what's going on potentially in the future at the Universal parks around the globe, let's talk a bit about this Pokémon news.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think just our luck sometimes is that the show goes live, or we record our show and then it goes live, and then they have some breaking announcements. So this was available on Friday, but we recorded a bit earlier. So this is the first time that we kind of got this information. You and I get to kind of chat about this, but it was Universal Studios Japan made an announcement that they're doing a new global theme park expansion centered on Pokémon. So, and this is part of the franchise 30th anniversary celebration, and as I've stated, it will debut in Japan, but there was one little line that was saying that, hey, this will also be rolled out globally, which has got everybody over here in the States all excited. So, this isn't necessarily, it is new news, but it's not something that is so, out of left field, right?
Oh, no. Remember, and I think we've talked about previously on this podcast about, for example, supposedly the theme park rights for The Simpsons, evaporate, so to speak, in 2028. And, I think you and I have talked previously about what potentially could go into that corner of at least Universal Studios Florida. And I shared the story where back when Pokemon Go was so white hot, people were, just wandering around free ranging with their phones trying to collect rare Pokemon. That supposedly that was an idea that was kind of kicked around for that corner of the park. The notion that, now mind you, that was also during the same time that, there was that art out there that showed where, the Woody Woodpecker coaster was located in Feifel's Playland. They showed, that was when Mario Kart was supposed to go into E.T. and Peach's Castle was supposed to be built on top of where the Kung Fu Panda water play is today. I mean, so they were looking at potentially seeding over that side of the park to Nintendo properties, which is why to hear that the Pokemon Go thing potentially was in the works for Fast Food Avenue. This isn't a surprise. That this is happening. That finally, Pokemon is coming into a Universal Park. I mean, and also given that Super Mario started over in Japan, so we're following the established playbook. But if we work the math. Realistically, do they offer a time frame?
No, it was just a pretty blanket, hey, we're excited to work together. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, I mean, it's not the first time they worked together. They did mention that their partnership began in 2021, and there were things like the No Limit Parade, and then they had seasonal Halloween events over in Osaka. So there wasn't a date. But the funny thing is, and you correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there some type of, when they did the Nintendo lands, they launched them over in Japan, and then there was like a time frame where maybe 3-5 years where you weren't allowed to bring them out to the different parks. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other hard reality is that, Nintendo as a company, has cut deals in all sorts of different directions. Now, mind you, remember, we did have this initial agreement in 2015 between the Universal Parks and Nintendo, and then on the heels of that, in 2018, we got the deal with Universal Pictures and Nintendo, which got us our first Super Mario Brothers movie, and now Mario Brothers Galaxy coming out in April. Again, it's always interesting with these deals within deals within deals about, what the timeline is. This, however, what intrigues me about this is that, remember, within the past 6 months, we've been talking about the work that's been going on over at Poseidon's Fury in Lost Continent. But we've been hearing Zelda over there, right? That's that.
I mean, I don't know if it's fan service, if it's a wish list, or if there's any truth to it, but it seems like that if you're going to take some of the high-end Nintendo properties, you're going to try to get them kind of situated in the different parks. So I guess if you put Zelda over there, that would mean Universal Studios proper would be great for Pokemon, although it's not a Nintendo property. It kind of feels like it's adjacent,
Oh, yeah.
So it would get your Nintendo kind of in each one of the parks, so to speak. But then there's a lot of people saying the Lost Continent is where Pokemon should go. So I right now they have not made an announcement that we are getting anything. They said globally. They didn't necessarily say here in, necessarily Florida or even Hollywood. There's plenty of Universal parks out there. So we'll see.
No doubt. I want to caution folks, given what we mentioned just on last week's show about the Fast and Furious Hollywood drift. You got to remember, what was it, 2 years ago when we initially got the news about, hey, Rip Ride Rocket is going to become a Fast and Furious themed coaster. And then for the next 2 years, we all sort of, forgot that. And then, it's Ghostbusters. It's Back to the Future. And then it's Hollywood, it's Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift, just like we said.
Yeah.
So I just have this uneasy feeling that, we're going to revisit that very same thing with Lost Continent, that we're going to be, it's Zelda. And then we'll talk about the 5 properties that it's not. And then
Right.
it's like, it's Zelda. It's like, wow, what an amazing surprise.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we just like to fool ourselves. We like to speculate. It's fun. And then we go back around to it. So we'll see what happens. I would say whatever they're building in Japan is likely what we'll get here. It seems like the playbook is that they're not going to go super original in different parks, right? The different.
No.
So whatever they get there, if we get it over here, let's just see how big the footprint is for what kind of attractions they're building. And if it turns out there's some type of stadium show or some type of simulator ride, then maybe the Simpsons area and where the Wild Wild West stunt show or something like that could be an area where Pokemon live. So it'd be interesting. So that might be the tell.
Okay. Now, speaking of which, again, folks, when we shared the news about Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift, in this case, it was my associate over at Disney Dish, Len Testa, who had come across, a notice to that effect and shared that info. And now Eric earlier today came across something that, again, hopefully we'll make all you Wicked fans out there happy, but tell the nice folks what the trademark that you came across.
Well, Universal has filed a live pending trademark application for the word OZTACULAR SPECTACULAR. So notice the first 2 letters is OZ, Oz. We talked a little bit at the earlier part of the show, Wicked. I think that is something important of this note. So it is a advertising services, business-to-business advertising trademark that has been filed for Universal City Studios, LLC. So that is public. There's not been mention of anything else, what that means. Sounds like a show. Is that what it sounds like? Or, would that be a name of a land? It's Spectacular seems like it's a show name, right?
Yeah. And, it just, This gets interesting because we only just got... what is it? Last year, we got our brand new nighttime show out on Universal Studios Lagoon. So doesn't seem likely, given the investment in that show, that's going anywhere anytime soon. And on the other hand, OZTACULAR SPECTACULAR.
Well, and then we had the epic. It doesn't seem like it'd be epic because we just had the celestial, like, good night trademark or what they're working on over there. But the thing is, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not for us here in the United States. Like, there has been lots of talk and discussion that the UK park that they're working on, there has been design and the concept art shows some green coasters and so forth in there. And I think there's lots of speculation that this could be made for that park, and they're just grabbing the information. That could be a nighttime show there. It's tough to say, but that name itself says, hey, there's something. And maybe
no.
Maybe just a show. Maybe it's just, it's a street show. It seems like that would be a little not beneath, but it seems like they would want to make a bigger deal out of bringing
absolutely.
Wicked in. But
absolutely, and it just and again, we've talked previously on this podcast about the supposed horse trading that might be involved with Disney finally getting the theme park rights east of the Mississippi to certain Marvel characters, and what would then happen with Marvel Superhero Island at Islands of Adventure. Again, interesting little bit of information, and let me go work my trap line and see. I was just chatting with somebody in regard to what Steven Schwartz, the gentleman who composed the score for Wicked, is up to. Because remember, they were talking about potentially furthering the franchise. And it's like, okay, what else? You know, is Mr. Schwartz working on anything? You know, and all right. Well, anyway, we'll keep an eye on this one, folks.
Yeah, Jim, and I don't know if you saw the next one. I saw this on LinkedIn, you know, that Universal actually shared they invited some families over and shared the model of the Universal Kids Resort in Frisco with a group. So I watched it there first and then went over to YouTube and watched this nice little 3-minute video, and they invited families in. Did you get to see the model? I know we saw some concept art, but they had some nice still shots of the model that you can kind of see it in a 3D notion.
Yeah, I mean, I you know, and I mean this in the kindest possible way. But Universal Kids is basically, it's a regional theme park very much modeled after the Legoland parks, which means that for families with young kids, this is a dream come true. You know, it's going to, in fact, what's interesting is that, you know, I mean, if you look at the, you know, the shots of the property, you can literally point to where the water park will be in 3 years, you know, after this place opens. I mean, this is going to be the resort for this part of Texas for, you know, young families with little kids. And the park is designed to service that group. I guess what's intriguing to me is that if you talk with people at Universal Creative, they genuinely feel that, you know, given where this park is positioned in the country, that, you know, what's going to happen is young families are going to come to Universal Kids, have a wonderful time, and then decide, oh, I need to take the kids out to California to Universal, or I need to take the kids to Orlando to see, you know, all of the parks down there. That they're hoping that this, you know, it's kind of the heroin business plan. You know, the first taste is free. You know, it's just sort of like, oh, hey, this Universal stuff is cool. You know, we should go to Florida or we should go to Hollywood.
Well, Jim, what I found fascinating is that, you know, like I said, I went over to YouTube and just typed in, you know, to try to find this video, and it took me to the page, which is Universal Kids, which is their own YouTube channel, has over 10 million subscribers. And I was like, that's pretty interesting. I clicked on there, and that's where the video was. But you know what? Also was a bunch of shorts for Trolls and all these other properties. And as you know, obviously I have 3 kids of my own, and they all kind of grew up watching YouTube. They go to YouTube and they find their shows, and that is kind of their, I guess, Saturday morning cartoons. But how amazing is it that you get these kids, you put on Universal Kids, the YouTube channel, and then all of a sudden, oh, the next video that comes up in a queue, oh, is this promotional video that's showing this new theme park. I'm like, oh my goodness, that is kind of genius, because that kid is going to be like going to mom and say, hey, you know, I was watching Trolls, this 3-minute short, and then did you know about this? Oh man, that is good marketing moves right there.
No, you are not wrong. You are not wrong. And you know, and again, for me, just this past week, for example, did you see where Leslie Iwerk's brand new documentary, Disneyland Handcrafted, not just on Disney Plus, but also on YouTube? I mean, it's just fascinating for me to watch these giant media corporations, which have their own streaming services, but at the same time recognizing this is where the audience actually is, and we need to be in this space. But you're not wrong. That is genius, to put little 3-minute long, you know, troll shorts up, and then, you know, to come out of that into something that hypes Universal Kids. Because again, face it, we are still a year out from this thing opening. So holy cow,
I'll be interested. Brilliant. I subscribed. I'm gonna just for the promotional stuff. I don't know if I need to watch any of the shorts, but this next one, Jim, I just want to throw out to you. All right, for those that are listening, you're gonna have to go online and just look up the newest Rock the Universe T-shirt. All right, Jim. So I supply a picture here, and I was just very interested. Jim, does that artwork on this T-shirt, mind you, this is for a rock concert at Universal, does that animation, did that artwork style remind you of anything?
Holy cow! Yes. Well, in Eric's reference stuff he sent to me, he notes that a yellow submarine, and you are dead on. Look at that. That's Sergeant Pepper right there. That sort of stylization. Oh,
So
I want one of these.
I do too. No offense, I don't have any desire to go to the concert.
Same thing here. I would just want the shirt. I mean, that's a great looking shirt.
So I was just very
wow.
intrigued. Like, number one, so I never really paid much attention. I'm a big Beatles fan. Obviously, watched Yellow Submarine a million times. So I looked it up, and it's the art director Heinz Eidelman. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe they had some type of licensing deal or what have you. But I was just curious, Jim. Like, any idea why they would be like, all right, we're going to make this Christian, shirt in the style of Yellow Submarine? Do you have any idea? Or is this just a weird coincidence? Or the art director is just like, let's make a cool looking shirt?
I'm assuming that this is an art director saying, let's make a cool looking shirt. And they nailed it in one. This is lovely.
It's amazing.
But at the same time, it kind of makes me sad for the, you know the story of the follow-up project, Robert Zemeckis was going to make with Disney after his Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey, the Yellow Submarine movie.
Yeah. I know enough of it to say, Jim, you're going to have to tell me more at some point.
No, that was a heartbreaker. That they literally got far enough along in the project that they actually held auditions back. This is 2009, so more than 15 years ago. They held auditions down in Connecticut for Beatles lookalikes because they were going to do, again, this was motion capture. And, they were looking for 4 young men who looked like the Beatles did, as they were depicted in Yellow Submarine, and they were going to perform. And then, but it was then going to be in the style of the hand-drawn Yellow Submarine movie, only done in CG and in 3D. I mean, it would have been the ultimate Beatles music experience because they evidently had the rights to the original recordings, but it was just the idea of we're going to do Yellow Submarine right. And, largely because of Dick Cook, the champion of this project, being fired by Disney, coupled with the fact that, Jim Carrey's Christmas Carol didn't do nearly the business Disney was hoping. And then, of course, the film that followed it, Marge Needs Mom, crashed and burned spectacularly. And Disney basically got out of the motion capture business. But this is the project I wish we got. But
yeah, no, I hope they have these in one of the AP discount stores. If they didn't sell out, I hope I go down there one day and these are on sale for $10 because we'll get everybody one.
Okay. Yeah. No, these are great. These are great. So, all right. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's news. But in the feature for this week's show, we're actually going to talk about an upcoming Universal Pictures release that actually has an interesting tie to the theme parks. But before we get to that, there's this.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Epic Universal Podcast. I do have some exciting news for you. Lauren from the I Want That Too podcast and I just launched a brand new podcast on the Jim Hill Media Network called Diz and Hers. This is the podcast where we deep dive into what the Disney community is talking about. Think of it as the Reddit comments in podcast form. Well, we just launched our first episode, so head over to your favorite podcast platform and search Diz and Hers, and feel free to subscribe and listen to our latest episode.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
And we're back. Okay, folks, on the Epic Universal podcast, Eric and I, we talk about the various summer blockbusters or big holiday films that Universal Pictures has in the works. Wicked for good. But which is why it's worth mentioning on this week's show that we are now just 5 months out from production beginning on that studio's latest movie version of that 1980s hit TV series, Miami Vice. Did you ever get to see that? It ran, it was on NBC in the 80s, but then ran on the USA Network forever. Ever see this, Eric?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've definitely caught it, yeah.
Okay, because again, I know you have your love of the early Universal shirts with their pink neon, which was one of the primary colors of the Miami Vice universe. And by the way, I guess we should mention, folks, that this upcoming Universal production is supposed to arrive in theaters August of 2027. Already got a locked-in release date of August 6th, and Joseph Kosinski, who directed, well, for Disney, Tron Legacy, but for Paramount, Top Gun Maverick, and, of course, last summer's big hit, F1. Austin Butler has supposedly already been signed to play Sonny Crockett in the movie version of Miami Vice. Also worth noting, this is the second movie version of Miami Vice that Universal has produced in the past 20 years. The first, which was written, directed, and produced by Michael Mann, who, oddly enough, was a producer on the original Miami Vice TV series in the 80s, which, to surprise of no one, was produced by Universal Television, which is why Miami Vice is really something of a legacy property at Universal Studios. Anyway, that first movie version of Miami Vice starred Colin Farrell as Sonny Crockett and then Jamie Foxx as Ricardo Tubbs. And that went out in the theaters July of 2006 and did okay. Didn't get a whole lot of love back 20 years ago, but over the past 2 decades, Eric, something of a cult following has risen up around this Universal film, largely because Michael Mann has a killer visual style. Anyway, back now to that second movie version of Miami Vice, which again is now in pre-production at Universal. Michael B. Jordan, and we were just talking about Academy Award nominations earlier on today's show. He just got nominated for Best Actor Oscar for his performance as Twins in Ryan Coogler's Sinners. Jordan is reportedly in negotiations to play Ricardo Tubbs in the Kosinski version of Miami Vice. But what's interesting is that, this has been going on since October, and what I've been hearing lately is that Jordan is effectively stringing Universal executives along with the hope that, at very least, now that he's been nominated for an Oscar, he can get a bigger quote, for, and particularly if again, it's kind of poker. If he decides to hang in there till the Oscars, and if he does win, Universal's got to pay him big bucks, back up the money truck to get him to come make Miami Vice. Just be interesting to say that.
He's a heck of an actor anyway. It seems like he has a pretty good name to him. They should be paying him pretty well regardless. But yeah, it's a funny play right now because I think right up until the point in time, try to get the biggest number and I would go. Do you think he has a chance to win it?
The weirdest part is that I just get the sense. I mean, if you think about the number of Academy Award nominations that Sinners got,
yeah,
I just feel like there's a lot of folks in Hollywood who feel like every year now, we give the awards to all of these movies that people don't go to. And that, and especially during this time where, think about it, just this, in the past couple of weeks, we learned how, the Academy Awards ceremony is going from being broadcast on ABC to being shown on YouTube, which, ironically ties in with what Eric and I were talking about earlier in today's show. I mean, there's a giant audience there. but but at the same time, the Academy Awards are about prestige, and it's just sort of like, is being broadcast on YouTube, really, does that say you're a prestigious award ceremony? So, kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, all right. I bring up these two movie versions of Miami Vice today because the original Miami Vice TV series has kind of an unusual history with the two stateside Universal parks that, in fact, given that the Universal Studios Florida was built in Orlando and the Miami Vice TV series was set in South Florida, it was kind of a gimme that theme park would have some sort of show tied to that TV series. Whereas out at Universal Studios Hollywood, it was more of a case that theme park already had a stunt show, which was tied to hit TV series airing on NBC. And by the way, that was the A-Team. And to be blunt, at that point in the mid-'80s, the A-Team was running out of steam. But before we talk about any of that, I guess we should take a look back at the creation of the original Miami Vice TV series, which, Eric, if we're being completely honest here, owes its creation to MTV. That cable television channel that ran music videos 24/7 debuted at the very start of that decade, to be specific, August of 1981. And kind of a sad side note here, folks. I don't know how many of you noticed, but MTV actually officially went off the air forever last month. Did you see this? December 31st?
I saw, and I saw all over the internet people were saying that, and I didn't know if it was true or not, because I also saw everybody saying that PBS shut down, and I told Lauren, I said, PBS shut down. They're like, no, it didn't. So there's all types of false advertising, but this one actually did happen, right? MTV did go down.
It did.
And it actually has a pretty interesting fact that the first video and the last video,
there we go.
They played, right?
There we go. Yes, the video killed the radio star by the Buggles. That it went in and went out to the same tune.
That's kind of beautiful.
I have to agree. But anyway, when MTV debuts in 1981, captures this huge audience that advertisers really, really want. Young people with money. Which, as you might expect, catches the attention of the older members of legacy media. To be specific, the then big three in broadcasting, CBS, NBC, ABC. And today we're going to talk about Brandon Tartikoff, who at the time was the head of entertainment at NBC. Anyway, it's now 1982, and Tartikoff is working on NBC's lineup for the coming broadcast season. And he's looking over the selection of shows that his network has in development, and Brandon's thinking to himself, like, how do I get the MTV audience to come over to NBC and start watching our shows? But this is the point. Tartikoff has a brainstorm. He grabs a pen and writes down two words, Eric. MTV Cops. With the idea that, what if we did a standard police procedural show, only one that would now be done in the style of a music video with great design and fun camera work. And
okay.
All right. So now, mind you, it takes Brandon 14 months to find a veteran television producer who will take his MTV Cops idea seriously. And this is Anthony Yirchoff, who previously had been a writer and producer on Hill Street Blues. And this is the hour-long police procedural, debuts on NBC back in 81, and then goes on to win 26 Emmys, including 4 consecutive Outstanding Drama Awards. So did you ever get to see Hill Street Blues in the day, Eric? Or
no, and that's I don't even think I've heard of it. And that's to win 26 Emmys, I feel kind of ashamed.
No,
I will have to look this up online. Mind you, it was a couple years before I was born, Jim. So
there we go. But the interesting thing is that both, and this was back in the day where if you had a hit TV show, the theme song could wind up being played in the top 10. And in fact, that's what's interesting. The Hill Street Blues theme played on radio, as did the Miami Vice theme song. But we'll get to that in a moment. Anyway, Yurchevich listened to Tartikoff's MTV Cops pitch. And then Anthony tells Brandon about this story. He had heard about vice cops who worked along Florida's Gold Coast. That's a 70-mile stretch of the southeastern Atlantic that stretches from Miami up to West Palm Beach. And what was interesting is that the police who worked in this area were allowed to keep the equipment that they had taken away from drug dealers that they'd arrested. And Eric, we're talking about high-powered speedboats and sleek, expensive, cars, all because of Florida's rather unusual asset forfeiture laws. And to Yurchevich's way of thinking, Florida's Gold Coast would be a great place for Tartikoff's MTV Cops to work.
Sure.
All right, so Brandon agrees, gives Anthony the seed money to go off and write what for a time is known as the Gold Coast show. Mind you, this is going to be expensive. Yurchevich figures that what with the on-location shooting that they're going to need to do in the Miami West Palm Beach area, each episode of this hour-long police procedural is going to cost $1.3 million, and that's a third more expensive than the standard police procedural during that time. And then when you factor in what Tartikoff wanted for the series, which, by the way, they focus grouped, and, the people like Gold Coast, is this about pirates? It's no. It's like Miami Vice. It's about cops. It's like, all right, Miami Vice it is. But to get the visual appeal from, like music videos, that's going to be pricey, too. And by the way, another weird little bend on this story, because Brandon really wanted people to think that this hour-long drama was the MTV Cops show. Miami Vice was the first ever show to air on NBC in stereo.
I don't even know what to think of this, Jim. Like, that just seems crazy.
I agree.
A time before stereo.
Yeah. But anyway, NBC, Brandon convinces NBC to take the pilot to series. But again, here's the problem. Because of the adult subject matter that this police procedural is going to regularly deal with, and we're talking drug dealing, prostitution, gun running, standards and practices at NBC is like, this show cannot air when there's a single child awake in North America. So it's scheduled initially to air on Friday night starting at 10 o'clock. Which is a problem, if your target audience is MTV fans, because the cool kids on Friday night at 10, they're not home watching TV. They're out partying.
Right.
All right. So anyway, long story short, first season of Miami Vice, it debuts September of 1984. This very expensive to make TV show teeters on the edge of oblivion because it doesn't get great ratings. And what they do have in their corner is the vocal support of some pretty notable TV critics who love the look of the show and the innovative way Miami Vice uses music. And that's enough to keep the show alive till that year's primetime Emmy nominations are announced, whereupon Tartikoff's MTV Cop show, it's honored with 15 nominations. And now, mind you, they only take home 4, Best Supporting Actor, Art Direction, Cinematography, and Film Editing. But those 15 nominations are enough to convince NBC brass, like, okay, we'll give you a second season. And it's interesting, it's only in the summer of 1985, when that first season's worth of episodes are now in reruns, that evidently the cool kids are finished partying and they come home and find the show and love it. So it becomes a legitimate hit in its second season, which is September of 85 through May of 86. So much so that Universal Studios Hollywood, and again, remind you that Universal Television produced Miami Vice for NBC, then raises its hands and is like, we'd like to bring this TV series to our park as the basis of a new stunt show. And we'll get to the specifics of that project in a moment, but first, this.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. Now you can do that that with the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
Did my card go through?
Oh no.
Your small business depends on its internet, so switch to Verizon Business. And you could get LTE business internet starting at $39 a month when paired with select business mobile plans. That's unlimited data for unlimited business.
There we go.
Get the internet you need at the price you want. Verizon Business. Starting price for LTE business internet, 25 megabits per second, unlimited data plan with select Verizon Business smartphone plan savings. Terms apply.
And we're back. Okay, so why did Universal Studios Hollywood want to bring Miami Vice to that theme park as the inspiration for a new stunt show? Well, Eric, if we're being honest, it was largely a financial decision. 2 years previous, June of 1984, Universal Creative had spent all of this money, we're talking millions here, to build a fifth show space on the upper lot in that area that was previously known as Universal Hollywood's Entertainment Center. And this stunt-heavy presentation, which featured leaping vans, vehicles rolling over, motorcycles popping wheelies, artillery firing, explosions and gunplay, was themed around the hit NBC show The A-Team, which, again, it's no surprise to anybody listening to this podcast, was produced by Universal Television and ran on NBC from January of 83 through March of 87. And so, it's summer of 86 that Universal Creative has raised its hands and says, we want to do a stunt show built around Miami Vice. And the part they didn't say out loud, Eric, at least not at first, was, and we'd like to put this Miami Vice stunt thing into the theater that we just built 2 years ago for the A-Team live action show, because the A-Team TV series, it's tanking in the ratings, and we're concerned that by this time next year, that show's going to be off the air, and we'll then be stuck with a stunt show in our theme park that's based on a canceled TV series. And as it turns out, the folks at Universal Creative weren't wrong. After just 4 seasons on NBC, the A-Team was canceled in March of 87. But the good news was Universal Hollywood's The A-Team live action stunt show presented its final performance just 3 months prior to that. Told that the last presentation was presented New Year's Eve, 1986 to December 31st. And over the next 6 months, Universal Creative takes the elaborate set that had previously been built for the A-Team live-action stunt show, which, by the way, you can look at on YouTube, folks, and it's set in this like remote border crossing facility in the American Southwest, and then turned it into, well, Eric, there's no other way to describe it. It's this lush corner of the Everglades, where this is now where Sonny Crockett and Ricardo Tubbs do battle with drug dealers.
Did it only start after 10 p.m. too, Jim?
No.
We're letting the kids watch this one, huh?
We are. And by the way, it debuts July 4th, 1987, just 6 months after the A-Team live-action stunt show debuts. And they build this, again, remember, we've gone now from the American Southwest to the Everglades, so there's this amazing faux lagoon between where the stunt show is being done and where the audience is sitting, which allows Crockett and Tubbs to then make use of speedboats and jet skis and, even mine carts. And this is another reason why I want to compel people to go watch it's an 18-minute long stunt show. It's available for a bunch of different angles on YouTube. And this last part of the show I'm mentioning, the runaway mine cart, the guys who made the Miami Vice Action Spectacular flat out admitted to me that this was a lift straight out of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which had debuted in theaters in May of 1984. I actually got to interview the guys at Landmark Entertainment who worked on this project, and this was a direct quote from the head of the team. We thought it looked cool, so we stole the minecart from Temple of Doom and put it in the Miami Vice stunt show. Sue us.
They don't own the carts, right? I mean, you can't copyright minecart chases.
But here's the thing: if you watch the footage, It's a cart on a track that seriously is mimicking the sorts of moves you saw in Temple of Doom. And by the way, it ends with a really spectacular bit where this giant helicopter, which is actually an animated prop on top of this huge robotic arm, actually rises up behind the set and starts then shooting, machine guns at Crocodile Tubbs, and it ends with fiery explosions. And now, conceit of the show is that, a director, every so often, the action stops, director comes out on stage and explains, well, we're shooting an episode of Miami Vice, and, these 6 guys are doing all the stunts, and, here's our next scene where the helicopter comes in. I bring up the Indiana Jones thing because 8 months before Disney MGM was going to open up down in Florida, and so we're talking August of '88, the team building that theme park suddenly realized we don't have nearly enough shows to entertain the number of guests who are now projected to come visit Disney World's third gate, especially during its opening summer. So we need an idea for a new show for this park, and fast. And veteran Imagineer Bob Weiss, and by the way, he tells this story in his memoir, Dream Chasing: My 4 Decades of Success and Failure at Walt Disney Imagineering. He talks about what it was like to be in this specific meeting with Michael Eisner, the then head of the Disney company, which is when somebody actually says out loud, we need a Disney version of the Miami Vice stunt show that Universal, it has out in Hollywood. And it's at this point, Bob slides a piece of paper, across the table to Michael with these 5 words written on it, Eric. It's like, Indiana Jones, epic, stunt, spectacular. And Eisner turns to Weiss and says, can we do that? And Bob says, we're already working with Lucasfilm and Star Tours. I'm pretty sure they'll let us use Indy for a stunt show. And Eisner says, build it. And this is how MGM's Epic Stunt Spectacular gets built. Mind you, it opens 3 months after everything else in the park, but basically 1 year to the day that Eisner said, go build that. Now, the real irony here is, again, MGM opens May 1st, 1989. Universal Studios, Florida opens June 7th, 1990. So what is that? It's a year and a month later. But by the time the Miami Vice Action Spectacular opens at Universal Studios Hollywood in place of the A-Team show, again, that's July of '87, Miami Vice, the TV show, is starting to come off the rails over at NBC. Don Johnson, who plays Sonny Crockett on the show, is threatening to walk off the show if he doesn't get more money. And then in September of '87, when the 3rd season of Miami Vice gets started on NBC, they actually changed the show's airtime from 10 p.m. to 9 p.m. And now, with that time period shift, when there were potentially children watching on a Friday night, this police procedural now has to do more family-friendly stories, which, when you're dealing with drug dealing and prostitution and gun running, that's hard to do, Eric. Anyway, Miami Vice starts to lose some of its edge, and its audience gradually starts to drift away, and as the ratings for this once white-hot pop culture phenomenon start to tank, NBC executives find it harder and harder to justify the TV series' $1.3 million per episode price tag, which is why January of 1990, NBC suddenly pulls the plug on Miami Vice. They shut the show down in the middle of its 5th season, which makes it a little difficult for the folks down in Florida who are putting the finishing touches on Universal Studios Florida. Because that park's Kiss Goodnight, the big show that everyone was supposed to gather around Universal Studios Lagoon and watch before they exited a theme park and walked back to their rental cars, was a Miami Vice themed stunt show. Which brings us to the interesting part of the story, Eric. when that theme park opens, July 7th, 1990, this 20-minute long show, which is presented out on that 493-foot long, 183-foot wide at its widest point body of water, it's not called the Miami Vice Action Stunt Spectacular, but rather the Dynamite Nights Stunt Spectacular.
I never knew that. I just would have assumed it was, I always thought it was Miami Vice.
Well, you would logically do that because through the entire 20-minute long show, they're playing the Miami Vice theme song. All right. And they're running around on speedboats and jet skis, just like on the TV show. And mind you, that version of the stunt show runs in the park through February of 2000. I mean, it's there for almost a full decade. But because Miami Vice, the TV series, got canceled by NBC 6 months before Universal Studios opened, the folks who ran promotion for that theme park were, just like they insisted, this is our nighttime stunt show, which, by the way, is based on the one in California, which runs through January of 95, 5 years after NBC cancels Miami Vice. But it's like, no. We cannot mention that TV show, because we're a new theme park. We're not based on something that was old and canceled. So that's why Florida had a Dynamite Nights Stunt Spectacular rather than a Miami Vice Action Spectacular. And I just in closing here, Eric, I have to say that I got to wonder if this new Joseph Kaczynski Miami Vice movie does well when it's released to theaters next summer, August of 2027, whether we might see this IP return to the park. Also want to just ask Epic Universal podcast listeners if they remember the Dynamite Nights Stunt Spectacular, which, by the way, Eric, again, there's a couple of decent videos out there of this 20-minute long show. 3 acts that happen at different parts of, again, this nearly 500-foot long lagoon. And I have to say, that was the one real problem with the show, was that, you could be positioned to watch one act of the show really well, but the other 2 you'd wind up missing out on. And realistically, if you wanted to see the show in its best possible way, you had to go to the park at least 3 times. And, it's like, okay, I'm here for the version of, the third act of the show where the boat blows up in front of where Back to the Future is, or I'm here for the second act over where I have to watch that from San Francisco, which is where the boathouse blows up. But I forget, I think it was over by where Transformers is today, where the opening act of the show were effectively a place where you'd go gas up your boats exploded. But it was kind of the same show, 3 different times. It's like, you're standing here and something blows up.
Well, the accountants probably liked it that you had to get a full complete. You had 3 tickets that you had to buy, so they were probably happy about that.
There we go. But again, Eric and I would love to hear your memories of both the Hollywood version of the Miami Vice Stunt Show, which, by the way, when that ended in 95, that got turned into Waterworld, which is still running in that park, Eric, almost 30 years now. And but at the same time, what do you folks remember of Dynamite Nights at Universal Florida? And with that, I think that's going to do it for this week's show, Eric. That said, if you folks have topics or suggestions for future things that Eric and I can talk about on this podcast, please let us know. And send those along via social media. And beyond that, thanks for listening. And we will be back next week.